Teacher cuts off the wrong black girl's hair, not knowing her father is a federal judge. Riverside Preparatory Academy. Monday morning, third period. 12-year-old Maya Bennett was sitting in art class, her locks tied back in a careful bun, her hand sketching a portrait for her grandmother's birthday, completely unaware that the next 45 minutes would prove once again that black children's bodies are never truly their own in American schools. What her white art teacher, Mrs. Patricia Hoffman, didn't know? Maya's father wasn't just any parent. He was the Honorable Marcus Bennett, federal judge for the Northern District, a man who'd spent 20 years interpreting civil rights law. That ignorance, that assumption that this black child's hair was hers to control, would cost Mrs. Hoffman everything. Let me paint you the picture of Maya Bennett. 12 years old, dark brown skin that caught the morning light streaming through the classroom windows. Her locks 4 years in the making, each one carefully maintained, some adorned with gold cuffs her grandmother brought back from Ghana. She wore them with pride, just like her mother taught her, just like her father encouraged. In a school where she was one of 17 black students out of 400, those locks were armor, identity, heritage. They told the story of who she was before anyone could decide for her. Riverside Prep was one of those schools, you know the type. Diverse in the brochure, which meant they had a handful of black and brown faces sprinkled in photos. The kind of place where diversity meant having one milk assembly a year and a multicultural food day, where teachers claimed they didn't see color but somehow black girls always violated dress code, where natural hair was distracting but white girls' messy buns were casual chic. Maya had been there since 5th grade, top of her class in math, captain of the debate team, the kind of child who made her parents burst with pride and kept her head down when microaggressions flew. She'd already learned to navigate, code switch when needed, stay excellent, make it hard for them to find fault. At 12, she was already exhausted. That Monday started like any other. Maya arrived early, said good morning to teachers who barely looked up, settled into art class. She loved art, the one space where she could just create, just be. Mrs. Hoffman had been her teacher for 3 months now. A white woman in her 50s, 23 years in education, the kind who decorated her classroom with inspirational posters about dreaming big but had never once featured a black artist's work. Mrs. Hoffman had been watching Maya's hair for weeks, made little comments. Must be hard to maintain. Does it get heavy? So permanent? Each question loaded, invasive, treating Maya's body like a curiosity exhibit. Maya answered politely like she'd been taught. Like every black child learns early, manage white comfort even when you shouldn't have to. But that Monday, Mrs. Hoffman decided politeness wasn't enough. "Maya, sweetie," she said, approaching her desk with scissors in hand. "Your hair keeps falling forward while you're drawing. Let me just trim these pieces in front so you can see better." Maya froze. Every black girl watching this knows that feeling, that split-second calculation. Say no and be difficult, or submit and lose something precious. "Mrs. Hoffman, my hair's fine," Maya said carefully, voice measured. "I can tie it back more if—" "Nonsense. I can see it bothering you. Hold still. This'll just take a second." And before Maya could move, before she could protest, before she could do anything, Mrs. Hoffman grabbed one of her locks and cut. The sound of those scissors, snip, echoed through that classroom like a gunshot. Maya's hands flew to her head. Around her, classmates gasped. The 2 other black students in class, Jasmine and DeAndre, looked horrified, already knowing this was different. This was deeper. This was violation. "What did you do?" Maya's voice cracked, 12 years old and fighting tears. In her palm sat 6 inches of her lock. 4 years of growth. History. Identity. Gone. Mrs. Hoffman looked confused, almost annoyed at Maya's reaction. "I helped you, honey. It was in your way." If you're a black person watching this, you already know where this is going, don't you? How many times have we watched white people feel entitled to black bodies? Black hair? Black space? How many times have our children come home violated, and we've had to swallow rage to teach them how to survive? Drop a comment, but first, you need to hear what this teacher didn't know about who she was messing with. Have you experienced this? The assumption that your body isn't yours, that your hair, your space, your existence needs white approval. Comment your story below. This is a safe space. We see you. Because Maya Bennett wasn't just any student. And her father? Federal Judge Marcus Bennett was about to teach Riverside Prep what accountability looks like. Maya sat there, shaking, that piece of her lock still in her hand. Around her, the white students looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Jasmine, one of the other black girls, started to stand up, solidarity rising. But her eyes met Maya's and she saw the warning, "Don't make yourself a target too." That's what we teach our children, isn't it? Protect each other, but survive first. Mrs. Hoffman was still talking, voice taking on that defensive edge. Maya, you're being very dramatic. It's just hair. It grows back. I was trying to help you focus on your artwork instead of, "You cut my hair." Maya's voice was stronger now, tears threatening but held back. "You didn't ask. You just cut it. Well, I'm your teacher. I'm responsible for maintaining appropriate." Appropriate? DeAndre, the other black student, couldn't stay quiet. Her hair was appropriate. You just didn't like it. Mrs. Hoffman's face flushed. DeAndre, that's enough. I don't appreciate your tone. Maya's hair was interfering with her work, and as her teacher, I made a judgment call to assault her, Jasmine said quietly. The word hung in the air. Assault. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Uninvited, unwanted touching. Cutting. Taking. Mrs. Hoffman's voice went cold. Excuse me? I did no such thing. I helped a student who was struggling. If you three want to turn this into some kind of situation, you can take it up with Principal Morrison. But I suggest you remember who the adult is here. There it was. The power card. The reminder that in this building, in this system, she held all the cards. Or so she thought. Maya's hands were steady now as she pulled out her phone. Mrs. Hoffman noticed immediately. Put that away. You know the rules about phones during class. I'm texting my father, Maya said, each word deliberate. Mrs. Hoffman laughed, actually laughed. Your father can address any concerns through the proper channels. Now put the phone away, or I'll have to. Have to what? Maya looked up, and for the first time, Mrs. Hoffman saw something in this child's eyes that made her pause. Take it from me? Like you took my hair? How many of you just felt your blood pressure rise? That's recognition, isn't it? The moment when a black child has to become adult-level strategic to protect themselves. The moment innocence dies a little more. The text was already sent, Dad, emergency. Teacher cut my locks. Please come. Within 10 minutes, Maya sat in Principal Morrison's office, a white man in his 60s, district veteran, the kind who prided himself on running a tight ship and treating everyone equally. Mrs. Hoffman sat beside her, playing victim now, dabbing her eyes. I simply don't understand why this became such an issue, Mrs. Hoffman explained, voice trembling with performative emotion. I've been teaching for over 2 decades. I was helping her. She was struggling to see her work, and I made a quick adjustment. Now I'm being accused of assault? Principal Morrison nodded sympathetically. Maya, I understand you're upset. Change can be startling. But Mrs. Hoffman was acting in her capacity as your teacher to help you succeed. Maya sat there, that piece of her lock wrapped carefully in tissue in her pocket. She'd learned this script already, 12 years old, and already fluent in the language of black children not being believed. She didn't ask permission, Maya said carefully, code switching hard now, making sure every word was perfect. She grabbed my hair and cut it without my consent. That's not helping. Let's not be dramatic, Morrison interrupted. I'm sure if we just had a conversation first, this could have been avoided. Mrs. Hoffman, perhaps in the future we ask before making decisions about students' appearance? Of course, Mrs. Hoffman agreed quickly. I certainly didn't mean to upset her. Though I have to say, the school handbook does mention that hair should be kept neat and non-distracting, and her style has been somewhat. My locks are neat, Maya said, voice rising despite herself. They're professional. They're mine. And nowhere in the handbook does it say teachers can cut students' hair. Morrison leaned back, that administrative smile plastered on. Maya, I think we're all a bit emotional right now. Why don't you take the rest of the day off, let everyone cool down, and we can revisit this tomorrow. Mrs. Hoffman has apologized. She hasn't apologized, and I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. That word. Misunderstanding. Like racism is just a communication error. Like violation is just a perspective issue. Maya pulled out her phone again. Still no response from her father, but she knew he'd come. He always did. Is your father coming? Morrison asked, and there was something in his voice, condescension mixed with dismissal. He'd dealt with upset parents before. He had his talking points ready. Yes, Maya said simply. Well, when he arrives, I'm happy to explain the situation. I'm sure once we all sit down as adults. The office door opened. Drop A, or if you've sat in that office, been that child, watched your parents have to fight for your dignity. We're not alone. Marcus Bennett walked into Riverside Prep at 11:47 a.m. 6'2", dark-skinned, his locks, 20 years in the making, pulled back professionally. His federal court badge clipped to his belt, visible under his tailored suit jacket. A black man who'd spent his career interpreting law, now walking into a building where his daughter's body had been treated as property. The receptionist looked up, that micro-expression crossing her face, the one black people recognize instantly. Surprise. Assessment. A quick glance to see if he belonged. I'm here for Maya Bennett, he said, voice calm but carrying weight. Are you her father? Not let me get her for you. Not of course. The question itself was evidence. In a school where white parents walked in unquestioned, this black man in an expensive suit was interrogated. Yes. Federal Judge Marcus Bennett. She texted me there was an emergency. The title shifted things, always did. The receptionist's demeanor changed, that performative politeness clicking into place. Oh. Judge Bennett. Yes, of course. Principal Morrison has Maya in his office. There was a small incident, but I'm sure it's all. Where? She pointed. He walked. Morrison's office door was closed, but Marcus didn't knock. He opened it and saw his daughter, his brilliant, beautiful daughter, sitting with her hand pressed to her head, eyes red but face composed. Across from her sat a white woman he didn't recognize, and Morrison, who stood up quickly with that administrative smile. Mr. Bennett, thank you for. Judge Bennett, Marcus corrected, his eyes on his daughter. Maya, baby, you okay? She shook her head, pulled the tissue from her pocket, unfolded it, showed him. Marcus Bennett had presided over hate crimes, had sentenced people for racially motivated assaults, had read case law about discrimination and bodily autonomy until the words blurred. But seeing his daughter's lock, severed, wrapped in tissue like evidence, something in his chest cracked and hardened simultaneously. Who did this? I did, Mrs. Hoffman said, and there was defensiveness in her voice already. I was helping her focus on her assignment. Her hair was in the way, and I made a quick trim. She's overreacting. You cut my daughter's hair without permission. It wasn't a question. Marcus's voice was deadly calm, the voice he used in courtroom when laying out facts that would destroy someone's defense. Morrison jumped in, hands raised in placation. Judge Bennett, I understand you're upset, but let's keep perspective. This was a simple misunderstanding between teacher and student. Mrs. Hoffman was acting in her professional capacity to help Maya with, show me the policy that allows teachers to cut students' hair. Silence. Show me, Marcus repeated, the section of your handbook, your district policy, or your employment contract that gives this woman authority to put her hands on my daughter without consent, without emergency, without cause, And cut her body, now let's not be. Her hair is her body. You know that. I know that. And cutting it without consent is assault and battery. So unless you can show me policy that supersedes state law, he let the sentence hang. Mrs. Hoffman's face had gone pale. I was just trying to help her concentrate. Her hair was distracting. Distracting to whom? To her. To the class. I've been teaching for 23 years, and I know when a student needs. Have you ever cut a white student's hair? The question landed like a gavel. That's not relevant. This situation was specific to, have you ever touched a white student's hair without asking? Grabbed it? Cut it? Made decisions about their body without consent? This isn't about race, Morrison interjected. Let's not make it about. Marcus turned to him, and the look silenced the principal mid-sentence. My daughter's locks, a hairstyle protected under the Crown Act, rooted in black culture and identity, were cut by a white teacher who felt entitled to alter a black child's body. You're telling me that's not about race? Would you have kept your composure? We all know what happens when we don't. When black people raise voices, we're aggressive. When we demand justice, we're difficult. Judge Bennett knew the game. He'd been playing it his whole life. I want to see her personnel file, Marcus said. Morrison blinked. I'm sorry? Mrs. Hoffman's personnel file. Any complaints, any previous incidents. You can provide it voluntarily, or I can subpoena it. Your choice. You can't just. I'm a federal judge. My daughter was assaulted in your building. I can do exactly this. The room went quiet. Mrs. Hoffman was crying now, white woman tears. That weapon black people know too well. I never meant, I would never. This is all being blown out of proportion. I love all my students equally. I don't see color. Then why did you see my daughter's hair as something to fix? Marcus asked. Why did her natural protective style register to you as problematic? As yours to alter? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain to me, use your 2 decades of experience, why you thought cutting a 12-year-old black girl's locks was appropriate. Mrs. Hoffman looked to Morrison for help. He cleared his throat. Judge Bennett, I think emotions are running high. Perhaps we should all take a breath, reschedule this conversation for tomorrow when you've had time to get your lawyers involved, when you've coached your staff, when you've come up with a narrative that covers the district. Marcus shook his head. No. We're handling this now. You're going to call the superintendent. You're going to report this incident. And you're going to place Mrs. Hoffman on immediate leave pending investigation. I can't just. You can. You will. Or I'll file a federal civil rights lawsuit before the day ends, and you'll explain to the school board why you protected a teacher who assaulted a child instead of protecting the child. Morrison's face flushed. You're threatening. I'm explaining consequences. There's a difference. Maya watched her father, and something in her chest loosened. All her life she'd been taught to be perfect, to make herself small, to manage white comfort. But here was her father, refusing, demanding, taking up space without apology. Mrs. Hoffman stood up, indignant now. I'm being vilified for trying to help. This is exactly what's wrong with education today. We can't even help students without being accused of. You violated my daughter's civil rights, Marcus said flatly. The Crown Act, passed in this state 2 years ago, explicitly protects against race-based hair discrimination. You touched her hair, altered it without consent. That's not help. That's assault. That's discrimination. And you're about to learn those words have legal meanings with legal consequences. Hit like if these stories need to be told. Racism thrives in silence, and this silence about to get very, very loud. Marcus pulled out his phone. Maya, show me the lock. She handed him the tissue. He photographed it. Time-stamped. Date-stamped. Then he turned to Morrison. I want security footage from the classroom. I want witness statements from every student present. I want Mrs. Hoffman's response in writing. And I want the name of the district's legal counsel. This is premature. This is documentation. You're familiar with the concept? Morrison's jaw tightened. He was used to being the authority in these situations, used to parents backing down when he used administrative language and talked about policy and procedure. He wasn't used to a federal judge who knew policy, who'd written legal precedent, who couldn't be intimidated. "Let me call the superintendent," Morrison said finally. "Speakerphone," Marcus said. "I want to hear this conversation." The call connected. Superintendent Dr. Helen Bradshaw, a white woman who'd been with the district for 15 years, answered with administrative cheerfulness that died the moment Morrison explained the situation. "A teacher cut a student's locks," Morrison said carefully. "The father is here, and he's concerned." "I'm Federal Judge Marcus Bennett." Marcus interjected, "and my daughter was assaulted. I'm requesting immediate administrative leave for the teacher involved and a full investigation into both this incident and any pattern of discriminatory behavior in your district." Silence on the other end. "Then, Judge Bennett, I understand you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm holding your district accountable under federal civil rights law. Would you like me to list the statutes you're currently violating?" Dr. Bradshaw's voice changed. "Let me be clear. We take all allegations seriously. We'll open an investigation immediately. But I need to understand the full context before making personnel decisions about a veteran teacher. The context is assault and battery of a minor. Hair discrimination under the Crown Act. Potential violation of Title VI. That's your context, with all due respect. Dr. Bradshaw, you're about to have a very bad week. You can start it by placing Mrs. Hoffman on leave and launching a real investigation. Or you can start it by defending her and finding yourself in federal court. Choose wisely." Through the phone, they could hear her breathing. Calculating. "Mrs. Hoffman will be placed on paid administrative leave effective immediately. We'll conduct a thorough review. I want it in writing. And I want the district's compliance officer assigned." "Today?" "Of course." Marcus hung up. Turned to Mrs. Hoffman. "You need to leave this campus. Now." She stood there, mascara running that victim expression perfected. "This is unfair. I've dedicated my life to teaching. I would never. You did. You grabbed my daughter. You cut her hair. You violated her body because you felt entitled to alter what you deemed unacceptable. That's what happened. And now you face consequences. I didn't mean. Intent doesn't erase impact. You're a teacher. You should know that. Can you see your mother/sister/brother in this? Yourself? How many times have we watched white people center their feelings when confronted with their racism? How many times have their tears mattered more than our trauma? As Mrs. Hoffman gathered her things, escorted by Morrison, Jasmine and DeAndre appeared at the office door. Behind them, 3 white students from the art class. "Mr. Bennett, Judge Bennett, we saw everything," Jasmine said, her voice shaking but firm. "Can we make statements?" Marcus looked at these children, 14, 15 years old, already understanding they needed to speak up, needed to be heard. "Tell me what you saw." They did. Every detail. How Mrs. Hoffman had been commenting on Maya's hair for weeks, how she'd called it unruly and difficult to manage, how she'd suggested Maya should consider something more conventional, how, that morning, she'd grabbed the lock without warning, without permission, and cut. One of the white students, a girl named Emma, spoke up, crying. "I should have said something. When she grabbed Maya, I should have, but I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry." Maya looked at her, and there was something ancient in that 12-year-old's eyes. "It shouldn't be on you to protect me from teachers, but thank you." Marcus documented everything. Student names, statements, timestamps. He'd been a lawyer before a judge. He knew how to build a case. And this one? This one was airtight. By the time they left that office, Mrs. Patricia Hoffman's 23-year teaching career was over. She just didn't know it yet. The silence, the complicity, The assumption that black children's bodies were public property? That was over too. Share this with someone who doesn't understand living while black. Someone who thinks racism is just slurs and segregation. Someone who needs to see that it's scissors and entitlement and a white woman feeling ownership over a black child's body. By 6 p.m. that evening, Marcus Bennett sat in his home office, walls lined with law books, his Harvard law degree prominently displayed alongside his appointment certificate to the federal bench, and drafted a legal complaint that would change Riverside Preparatory Academy forever. But before that, before the legal mechanisms ground into motion, he sat with his daughter. Maya's mother, Dr. Maya Bennett, a psychiatrist who specialized in racial trauma, carefully examined the damaged lock. 4 years of growth, countless hours of maintenance, a connection to heritage and identity. Gone in a scissor snip. We can repair this, Aisha said softly. The lock doctor can help us. It won't be exactly the same, but it shouldn't have happened at all, Maya finished. Her voice was steady now. The tears dried. 12 years old and already processing trauma. Already having to be resilient when she should just be allowed to be a child. Marcus watched his daughter, this brilliant, beautiful child who'd done everything right, been everything they asked, excelled despite obstacles, and felt that familiar weight. The weight every black parent carries. They'd given her every advantage. Private school, resources, opportunities. They'd taught her to code switch, to navigate, to be twice as good. And still, a white teacher felt entitled to her body. Tomorrow, Marcus said, I'm filing a federal civil rights lawsuit against Mrs. Hoffman, Riverside Prep, and the school district. We're also filing assault and battery charges with the prosecutor's office. And I'm requesting a federal investigation into the district's pattern of racial discrimination. Maya looked up. Will it matter? Will anything actually change? That question. God, that question from a 12-year-old who already understood systemic racism. Yes, Marcus said firmly. Because this time, they messed with the wrong family. Not because we're more important than other families. We're not. But because I have resources and platform and legal knowledge that I'm going to use. For you. For every black child in that building. For every black child who gets sent home for their hair, who gets called distracting, who gets told their natural beauty is somehow wrong. The next morning, Marcus Bennett, federal judge, Harvard law graduate, former civil rights attorney, father, walked into the federal courthouse where he'd presided over hundreds of cases. But this time, he wasn't wearing his robes. He was filing as plaintiff. The Honorable Marcus Bennett v. Riverside Preparatory Academy, Patricia Hoffman, and Unified School District. The complaint was 47 pages. Detailed. Devastating. It outlined violation of the Crown Act creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, assault and battery of a minor, violation of Title VI, sexual discrimination in federally funded programs, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unreasonable search and seizure, her body, intentional, infliction of emotional distress, civil rights violations under 42 U.S.C. 1983. But more than that, it told a story. The story of every black child in that school who'd been dress-coded for their hair. Every black student told their natural hair was unprofessional. Every parent who'd fought administrators about discriminatory grooming policies. Marcus had done his homework, pulled records, found patterns. In the past 3 years at Riverside Prep, 17 black students had been dress-coded for hair violations. 0 white students had been dress-coded for hair. 4 black students had been suspended for refusing to comply with grooming standards. 2 black families had withdrawn their children, citing racial discrimination. The pattern was clear, documented, actionable. Have you ever seen a racist face consequences in real time? How did it feel? This is what accountability looks like. Comment below. Because what happened next? It happened fast. Immediate consequences. Within 48 hours of the lawsuit being filed, the media descended. Local news picked it up first. Federal judge sues school after teacher cuts daughter's locks. Then regional. Crown Act violation. Black student's haircut without consent. Then national. When educators assault, the case that's rocking private schools. The footage, because of course there was. Footage, classroom cameras, caught everything, went viral. Millions of views. Hashtag Justice for Maya trending. The image of Mrs. Hoffman grabbing Maya's lock, scissors flashing, that moment of violation captured in high definition. And Patricia Hoffman, her life unraveled in real time. Day 1, placed on paid administrative leave. Day 2, leave changed to unpaid as investigation escalated. Day 3, criminal charges filed, assault and battery of a minor. Day 4, fired from Riverside Prep effective immediately. Day 5, teaching license suspended by the state board. Day 6, civil lawsuit, served $2.5 million in damages requested. But it wasn't just her. The system she represented started crumbling. Principal Morrison? Forced to resign. The superintendent found emails where he dismissed previous hair discrimination complaints, called black parents oversensitive, instructed staff to maintain traditional grooming standards. Dr. Bradshaw, the superintendent, placed on leave. The school board discovered she'd received 3 previous complaints about racial discrimination and grooming policies and buried them all. 3 other teachers came forward with their own stories. Black students they'd seen discriminated against, complaints they'd raised that were ignored, a culture of silent racism they'd been too afraid to challenge. If you're feeling that satisfaction, that finally consequences, hit that like button. Share this. Let the world see racism has a price tag. Because the price tag? It kept growing. Extended consequences. Mrs. Patricia Hoffman tried to control the narrative. She released a statement through her lawyer. I am deeply sorry for the pain I caused Maya Bennett. I made a mistake in judgment. I am committed to learning and growing from this experience and hope to use it to become a better educator. The non-apology apology, the mistake language, the centering of her growth instead of Maya's trauma. The internet was not kind. Within hours, old social media posts surfaced. Mrs. Hoffman had shared articles about maintaining discipline in diverse classrooms, had commented on posts about the Crown Act with concerns about lowering standards, had liked content suggesting natural black hair was unprofessional in corporate settings. The pattern was there. This wasn't a mistake. This was belief system. Her husband, a mid-level manager at a tech company, faced pressure. Employees didn't want to work under the spouse of a known racist. He quietly resigned. Her children, adults now, had their social media flooded. They issued statements distancing themselves. The family fractured under the weight of public accountability. Mrs. Hoffman couldn't find work. Her teaching career, 23 years, ended with search results that would forever show her grabbing a black child's hair. Every job application, every background check, every Google search, Patricia Hoffman, racist teacher. The lawsuit? It settled. Fast. $2.5 million to the Bennett family, which they donated to a natural hair advocacy organization. Another $500,000 to fund a civil rights scholarship for black students. Criminal charges reduced to misdemeanor assault with 2 years probation and mandatory bias training, which Marcus fought, wanted the felony, settled for the precedent. But the real consequences ran deeper. Systemic changes. Riverside Prep Academy underwent a complete overhaul. Policy changes. Comprehensive anti-discrimination policy explicitly protecting natural black hairstyles. Zero tolerance for teachers touching students without consent. Mandatory training on the Crown Act for all staff. Independent. Review board with community representation for discrimination complaints. Anonymous reporting system for racial incidents. Personnel changes. 3 administrators fired. New principal hired, Dr. James Washington, black man with 30 years in education. Diversity officer position created, actually funded, actually empowered. 5 new black teachers hired to address representation gap. Financial accountability. $1 million fund created for racial equity programs. Full scholarships offered to 5 black students annually. partnership with local HBCU for pipeline programs, funding for Black Student Union and affinity spaces. But Marcus Bennett wasn't done. He used his platform, federal judge, respected jurist, parent who'd lived it, to push for state legislation, strengthening the Crown Act, adding specific provisions about educator misconduct, creating real penalties for schools that discriminated. He testified before the state legislature, "My daughter had resources. She had parents with education, money, legal knowledge, and platform. We could fight. But what about the Black children whose parents work 3 jobs, who don't have lawyers or media connections, who face the same discrimination but can't fight back? We build systems that protect all Black children, or we admit we only value some." The legislation passed, named Maya's Law. Do you think the punishment fit the crime, or should there have been more? What would you have done? Let's discuss in comments, respectfully. Because Maya Bennett is 14 now. Her locks have grown back, the damaged one repaired by a specialist, all of them longer, stronger. She's still at Riverside Prep. The family chose to stay, to continue the accountability work. She's captain of the debate team, started a natural hair club, speaks at schools about hair discrimination. She's a child who had to grow up too fast, but refused to let trauma define her. Marcus and Aisha Bennett continue their work. Marcus authored a major opinion on educational discrimination that's being cited across the country. Aisha published research on the psychological impact of hair discrimination on Black children. Together, they mentor other families facing similar situations. Patricia Hoffman is 49 years old, working retail, living in a different state. She can never teach again, her license permanently revoked. She's tried to rebuild, but Patricia Hoffman teacher brings up the video immediately. She tells anyone who will listen that she's not racist, that she made a mistake, that the punishment didn't fit the crime. She doesn't understand, still doesn't, that the punishment wasn't for a haircut. It was for centuries of white people feeling entitled to Black bodies. For every Black woman whose hair has been policed, touched without permission, deemed unprofessional. For every Black child told their natural beauty is wrong. Patricia Hoffman paid for her own actions and the accumulated debt of systemic racism she represented. Riverside Preparatory Academy is different now. Not perfect. Systemic change takes time, but different. Black students report feeling safer. Hair discrimination complaints dropped to 0. The culture shifted because accountability forced it to shift. Other schools watched. Some learned. Some are still learning the hard way. These stories matter because they're real. They happen every day to Black people in America. Teachers who feel entitled to police Black bodies. Administrators who protect white comfort over Black safety. Systems that value compliance over dignity. Subscribe so you never miss a story. Hit the bell. Join a community that refuses to let racism go unchecked. We're building accountability, one story at a time. Closing. Here's what I want you to remember. Racism isn't always burning crosses and slurs. Sometimes it's scissors. It's a white teacher who doesn't see color but sees Black hair as something to fix. It's the assumption that Black children's bodies are public property, subject to white approval and alteration. It's 23 years of teaching without ever questioning entitlement. For Black people watching, I see you. I see you checking your children's hair before school, making sure it's acceptable. I see you having conversations about code switching and respectability politics that 12-year-olds shouldn't need. I see you carrying the weight of protecting your babies while teaching them to navigate a world that sees them as threats or problems. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. They deserve to exist, locks, braids, afros, and all, without justifying their existence. For everyone else, don't be Patricia Hoffman. Don't be Principal Morrison or Dr. Bradshaw. Don't be the silent witnesses who watched a Black child get violated and said nothing. Don't hide behind "I don't see color" while enacting racist policies. Be better. Speak up. Recognize that natural black hair isn't political. Treating it as wrong is political. Learn about the Crown Act. Understand that black children's bodies aren't yours to manage, alter, or police. Because underestimating black people, that's a mistake you can't afford to make. Disrespecting us, that's the mistake that changes everything. And thinking there won't be consequences in 2024, that's the mistake Patricia Hoffman made. Next week, the black doctor they mistook for a janitor until they needed him to save a life. You won't believe how this ends. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. These stories need to be told. Until then, respect costs nothing. Dignity isn't negotiable. And racism? In 2024, it comes with receipts, consequences, and a community that refuses to stay silent. Peace.